If you see this man on the side of the road, don't go home. We here have an urban legend called the man on the wrong way. Perhaps, you might see him standing on the side of the road while you are driving. Some people say this always happens when you are on your way home. I've seen photos of the wrong way man. The photos spread between us via text messages. These photos circulated among students, workers, friends and family here. Strangely, I never saw these photos posted online. I'm not sure if it was due to fear, because those who had taken the picture intended to perpetuate the mystique of our local urban legend. I'm pretty sure that these photos are just a hoax, just someone dressed up as the wrong way man. It might even be the same person in every photo. As far as people can see the wrong way man's appearance, he is seen wearing his torn clothes inside out, usually a flannel shirt and jeans. The painting of his smiling face looks realistic and scary, until he turns to the side and you can see the flat surface of his face. It looks like he shaved off his hair, painted a face on the back of his head, and put a shoulder-length wig to cover his real face. Acquaintances of mine who claim to have seen the wrong way man say that they wait a week before driving home, stay at a friend's house or hotel and don't even hesitate to pack their belongings into a suitcase. The general consensus here seems to be, if you see him on your way home, don't continue on your way. Turn around, go somewhere else, and wait at least a week. I thought it was just bullshit, until one day and I met the wrong way man when we were on our way home from the cinema. Katie was the one who saw him. Slowly, he said, "I think I see the wrong way man you talked about." Katie had only lived in my town for half a year, so one of the things I told her in my mission to share as many interesting things as I could was our urban legend about the wrong way guy. Is it a coincidence that we were just talking about it a few days ago? I've never seen someone dressed up as the wrong way man in person. Through photos, ever. In person, never. My legs shook as I pulled slightly off the accelerator. It was dark, and there was either no lighting or the street lights were turned off. Or perhaps, his back to us. The face painting was facing us. Flannel shirts, jeans, and wigs also face us. His hands and feet look wrong. Her hands and feet were under her clothes in an upside-down position. I want to laugh, but I'm worried. When we were about 3 meters from my car, he turned his painted head towards us. The painted eyes, realistic but too far apart, looked as if they were looking right into my eyes. As we drove slowly past him, I waved at him and smiled to lighten the mood a little. He didn't wave back. I glanced at Katie. She waved too. But he didn't smile. I glanced back for a moment to see the flat surface of his painted, hairless head, and the optical illusion of the real face that had been there had worn off. Fade. Even worse than that. Also, when I peeked out of the rearview window as we closed our distance, I thought I saw something sparkling under the shoulder-length wig he was wearing. Then he disappeared, swallowed by darkness. I speed up my car. He wasn't walking, but I felt a little worried that he could easily catch up to us. "So what are we going to do now?" Katie said. "We can't go to your house, or mine." I glanced at him, and we both started laughing. "Well," I said, "after tonight, we can tell people we've seen the wrong way man and go straight home." "I'm curious who the person is who pretends to be the wrong way man," said Katie. "I'm curious why they did it. Do you think we should turn around and try to talk to them?" "I suggest we don't," I said. "They could be dangerous. But I'm sure they're just people trying to preserve our urban legend." "Well, it's your car," Katie said. "If this were my car." "Okay," I said. "We're going to turn it around. My grandfather once said, If you are confused about which turn to take, you can always make a U-turn until you find the answer. He uses it as a metaphor for life. But when I made my U-turn, my heart felt like it was beating fast. I drove along the dark road without seeing the man again. The place was only a few meters away from that direction, so there was no way he could walk or run away from it that quickly. Katie and I decided that the person dressed up as wrong way guy must have left the shoulder of the road into the surrounding woods. The idea of them hiding in the woods as we passed made me feel uneasy. We turned around again, and all the while I kept glancing around in case the guy jumped out at us from somewhere. But immediately after that we headed towards my house without turning around a second time to see the man on the wrong way. Katie and I tried to laugh it off, and we tried to talk about other things, but we were actually pretty freaked out. We couldn't stop talking about everything or glancing at our windows or rearview mirrors. We reached my housing complex, then reached the road leading to my house. And everything changed. As soon as we reached my street, instead of moving forward, we went backwards. I suggest we don't, I said. They could be dangerous, but I'm sure they're just people trying to preserve our urban legend. Well, it's your car, Katie said. If this were my car. Okay, I said. We're going to turn it around. My grandfather once said, if you are confused about which turn to take, you can always make a U-turn until you find the answer. He uses it as a metaphor for life. But when I made my U-turn, my heart felt like it was beating fast. I drove along the dark road without seeing the man again. The place was only a few meters away from that direction, so there was no way he could walk or run away from it that quickly. Katie and I decided that the person dressed up as wrong way guy must have left the shoulder of the road into the surrounding woods. The idea of them hiding in the woods as we passed made me feel uneasy. We turned around again, and all the while I kept glancing around in case the guy jumped out at us from somewhere. But immediately after that we headed towards my house without turning around a second time to see the man on the wrong way. Katie and I tried to laugh it off, and we tried to talk about other things, but we were actually pretty freaked out. We couldn't stop talking about everything or glancing at our windows or rearview mirrors. We reached my housing complex, then reached the road leading to my house. And everything changed. As soon as we reached my street, instead of moving forward, we went backwards. You shifted the lever to reverse position, Katie said. His hand held mine. His hands were cold as ice. I stopped my car. We both looked down. The gear lever is in the drive position. I took my foot off the brake and put it on the accelerator again. Housing. The familiar houses I see every day when I come home are far away from us. There's probably something wrong with my car, I said. But when I tried to move forward again, I looked to the side and then at the rear view of the car. We didn't move, not based on those views. In front of us, the houses got smaller every time I put my foot on the accelerator, but from the side and back it looked like we were standing still. On my street, everything is bright. Lots of street lights, so we can't say as if it has anything to do with limited vision. Let's get out of here, said Katie. His voice was almost a whisper. Come on, I said, in the same way. But how are we going to leave? Put your lever into reverse. When I put my car in reverse and tried it, we actually moved forward. But from the side and behind, once again we didn't look like we were moving, as if we were stuck right after crossing the driveway to my housing complex. It was when Katie and I stopped the car and were arguing about getting out that we saw someone coming towards us from the side of the road. He was approaching us from the front of the car, so I wasn't really sure of his distance. It looked like he was already about 6 meters away from us. I don't know why it took me so long to realize this. Maybe it's because I didn't want to, but I know my neighbor by the back of his head and his body shape, which is a bit unusual. I saw him often stop working in his garden when I drove past. He was walking upside down towards us. When he approached, he fell silent. Then he started shouting, "UKA Nollet. Like Nollet. Again and again. Stand in place." His back was facing us. Only then did I realize that he was saying, "Help me," backwards. I rolled down the car window. "Mr. Nelson," I said. "What is it?" He stopped screaming. Now that my window was open, I could hear the body creaking and breaking. Blood spilled from the cracks as his wrists and ankles changed drastically. When his pack's head turned to face us, I was sure that I saw light coming out of his eyes. Then, whatever had taken over Mr. Nelson's body took a step forward with a new architecture for his body. Katie and I screamed at that first step. I rolled up my car window as Mr. Nelson jumped up and down on his inhuman legs. His knees and elbows had been overstretched by the twist. I put my foot on the accelerator, with the lever still in reverse, and through the front window we were seen hurtling forward. Even though the views to the side and rear showed us staying where we were, we crashed into Mr. Nelson. Blood splattered on the windshield of my car. My car tripped as we passed his body. On the side and rear, there is no indication that the car tripped. I didn't see a body appear behind us. I kept my foot on the gas pedal, still moving forward in reverse. I saw the window of my neighbor's house broken. A couple I barely recognized crawled out like newly hatched baby spiders, covered in blood and more blood as they cut themselves on the broken glass in the window frame. I'm not sure they don't know how to open the window. When the wife stopped right at the window, she smiled. He deliberately rubbed his head against the sharp shards of glass. Fresh flesh and blood poured out. I think I can see the whiteness of his skull. At that time her husband, who was already on the ground, ran towards us. I drove forward. They and their house disappeared beside and behind the vehicle, which, again, was still stuck near a residential driveway. More and more people are coming out of their homes. They came out with their body parts twisted and damaged, injuring themselves more as they went out. They ran towards us on upside-down legs, humping their upside-down arms behind their backs. Nothing about them is true. Not long after that, I found myself slamming on the brakes. "Do not stop," Katie shouted. "We will be caught up by them." Ahead, I saw my own yard. Someone who looks like me is talking to someone else with a painted face. The painting face nodded. It nodded up and down like a real face. Then, I saw his wig moving on its own. I realized that the real face behind the wig was talking. Moved his lips. Breathe. The wrong way man was talking to me or someone who looked like me. At the same time, Katie tried to reach me, desperately putting her foot on the accelerator. Several twisted pieces of bone and flesh collided with the windshield of my car. Two faces with piles of folds on their necks looked at me with sad eyes. Those faces were faces I should have known. Their twisted hands continued to hit the window even though their eyes told me that their souls had left their bodies. Spider web-shaped cracks spread across the windshield. The cracks were covered in blood. I put my foot on the gas pedal while helping Katie sit back in her seat. We managed to get rid of them, and right after that we hit all the families in succession. I don't have time to feel guilty. They are not my neighbors. They are not my neighbors. They're not. Katie and I are starting to change. I heard some bones breaking. I felt it a moment later. Like a bolt of lightning followed by his voice then. Katie and I started screaming, almost at the same time and in the same tone. It felt like a chorus of pain and fear had just begun with us as the instruments. "Lean your head," I screamed as I tried to make sure that my head remained attached to my chair. "Don't let it get twisted. No matter what happens to the rest of our bodies, we must not let it kill us." "I know," Katie said. "Just get your car out of here. Turn around or whatever. Rewind." I thought, it's like what my grandfather said about life and how if you don't know what to do, you can always turn it around. The lever was in the reverse position, but still moving forward. I swerved the steering wheel until I heard a screeching sound from the wheels of my car. I didn't glance at the sides or back. I kept going, heading back the way we came in. The wrong way man waited. He was waiting for me at the intersection between my yard and the street. His painted mouth was forever grinning. The painting's eyes are too wide and don't blink. We passed it and drove out of the housing complex. Katie and I are still not out of the woods yet. That's how it is. I was able to get us to the nearest gas station before my legs and arms, some of which were twisted and flowing with blood, completely stopped functioning. I passed out instantly, but Katie told me that she remained conscious until the ambulance arrived. I don't envy him. We spent months in the hospital with broken bones and torn joints and muscles. I think the one thing that saved us from permanent damage might have been our vehicle seats that held our changes. We told the doctors that we had been in a car accident. They shook their heads at us and kept asking questions. I don't want to go home, actually. Neither of us wanted to. The reason why I went home was because one of the neighbors we had hit came to the hospital to visit me. They looked fine, as if nothing had ever happened and the wrong way man had never changed them. But the damage was done to my vehicle as well as to us, mentally and physically, and as long as our bodies are under treatment, I don't think we'll ever be the same again.